very excited now to be able to present 11.4 LTS, so a long-term supported release, giving enterprise customers access to all the latest Spotfire capabilities, such as mods, parallel data loading, multi-layer trellising of maps, and much more. So we will have a brief walkthrough of all the new features in this webinar, and also look at some highlights from previous versions. And then you can go to the What's New section in TIBCO community to learn and read more about all the new features. So to start with the usual disclaimer, so I might have some forward-looking statement. Actually, we are not GA yet, so maybe everything is forward-looking. Yeah. So just to give you a little context before diving into 11.4. So as you know, probably that TIBCO's product portfolio is based on 3 pillars: connect, unify, and predict. And if we focus on the predict pillar, there has capabilities around visual analytics, data science, and streaming analytics. You will see from this slide that TIBCO provides market-leading technologies for every single kind of analytics. So what you see here is from a Forrester report called Forrester Waves. And if we look closely, we can see that TIBCO is actually the only vendor that is a leader in all 3 analytics areas. Yeah, so we are bringing these analytic areas together, visual analytics, data science, and streaming, with the concept we call hyper-converged analytics, providing a seamless experience that delivers immersive, smart, and real-time business insights in an easy-to-use and tailored way. It's built for scale data-driven decisions, both by humans and automated processes, designed by analysts, data scientists, and domain experts who work closely with data engineers, data architects, and data stewards. So while Spotfire may be most known for visual data discovery and more advanced use cases, the truth is that many customers use Spotfire across all analytics and BI use cases. Spotfire is a full spectrum analytics platform supporting visual analytics, data science, dashboards, and reports, and even mobile BI and analytic applications and embedded analytics. And in addition to supporting all these BI use cases, Spotfire lets you use all kinds of data for insights: static data, real-time data, big or small data in memory or in database, or in any combination you like. So let's dive into 11.4. So as we said, it's an LTS, a long-term supported release, which means that it will get service packs and hotfixes for a long period of time. We are striving to have an LTS release about this time every year, so once a year. And in between, there are more frequent mainstream releases that allow you to upgrade frequently to always get the latest features. But we know that many of our enterprise customers prefer to stay on the LTS path, and that's why 11.4 is an important release. So let's start to look at all the new features then. So we're starting with mods. So mods are, maybe you all have heard some of it already. So those are lightweight extensions that make Spotfire infinitely customizable. So we did actually release the framework already in 11.0 November last year. And I know that several customers and partners have already started their own mods development. And we have run a few hackathons, we call them modathons, with great results. And we are planning more of these events later this year. It's important to point out that mods are really for every Spotfire user. So not only developers who can use the framework's industry standard development workflows to create new innovative mods, but also for analysts and authors that can easily download and deploy those pre-built mods and use them in the Spotfire analysis. To deploy a mod, you just drag and drop it to a Spotfire session. And first time you use a mod from a particular source, you'll get prompted for trust. So there is a built-in security model. Once approved, you can start using the mod right away in your analysis, and you can then reuse it in different analyses by saving it to the library or even pin it to the visualization menu for quick access. So for analysts, authors, and consumers, mods work like any native Spotfire visualization. They are essentially no-code apps where the implementation details are not at all exposed to the end user. Instead, the regular workflows, drag and drop, axis selectors, and property panels are used to configure mods for different data sets and different use cases. You have all the familiar Spotfire interactivity, such as brush linking and filtering, and you have the tight integration with all visualization features, such as creating details, visualizations, actions on marked data, export to PDF, and much more. And for developers, the mods framework provides a development environment based on industry standards and modern web development best practices. Visual Studio Code with NPM, Node Package Manager, GitHub, Node.js. There's a TypeScript-based API, and you have seamless integration with any third-party JavaScript library. With a Spotfire client, you'll get a live preview that is perfect for testing and debugging your mod with different configurations. And although deployment and usage of mods can be completely self-service, the framework allows the admin to have central governance of mods in their organizations. Admins can configure who can approve mods and who can share mods in the library. They can also pre-approve certificates and signers and pre-configure access to mods through the library and the user's visualization flyout menus. So if you now upgrade to 11.4 from 10.10 or earlier versions, you will immediately get access to 12 new Spotfire visualization types in the community mods collection. And we plan to regularly add new visualizations to this collection. So these ranges from, I mean, very specific ones to more like general purpose visualizations. I will not go through them all, but this is an interesting, it's the latest edition now, I think. This is the first mod that is externally developed. So thank you, John Jacobs from Belgium. He is an early mods champion that was the winner of the first modathon we had last year. Yeah, and then we have well, different applications. So this is good for public transportation applications to visualize the different stops along a route. But it's also seen it being used in like process map use cases. Vertical line chart, especially useful for oil and gas and drilling well log analysis. Also the 3D scatter plot. And yeah, another transportation use case mod. And the network chart, you've probably seen before. And the Hans Rosling chart, you've probably seen if you've seen the TIBCO COVID dashboard, it has been used there for a great way to visualize progress over time. Area chart, text card mod to visualize long texts, stock chart, spider chart. Yeah, so we have opened up the community mods collection for submission. So you are most welcome to submit your mods. I know that we have a few externally created mods in the pipeline, so it's really exciting. Yeah, so a few late additions now to the framework. Now we have worked on performance, so we have done some significant performance improvements for mods, especially for larger data sets. So we're actually seeing about 100% faster or more when just transferring of data from the Spotfire server to the client. And another thing is that the interactivity in general is much faster due to a more effective cancellation. So this means that when the user is doing performing undo, or he is doing a new marking or filtering before the previous one has been completely processed, that is not now handled much more efficiently. So in many times on par with native visualization. And a small addition to the API, so the ability to get information if the application is in viewing or editing mode. So all of the standard, the built-in user interfaces already react to this. You have, and even if they are used in a mod, so if the access selectors and properties panel and such, they will be like in a read-only mode when switching to viewing mode. But if the mod has some custom UIs, now the mod developer can make sure that all those UIs that are not intended for the consumer can be hidden in viewing mode. So this API is also added to the C# custom visualizations and the JavaScript API for mashups. And we have been more like future-proof by removing our dependency on third-party cookies. So this is something that all the major browsers have been talking about and actually announced that they are going to be blocking them in the near future. So now with version 11.4, we are not at all dependent on using third-party cookies anymore. And as a side effect of this, we no longer require that the Spotfire server uses HTTPS when running visualization mods in web clients, although this is something that we, of course, recommend. Yeah, so this was the mods section. And now we are going to talk about data science, data access, and data wrangling. So, yeah. Stop share now.
Thank you, Magnus. Okay, data science in Spotfire 11.4 LTS. First of all, let's start with an update on what has been released between 11.0 and 11.3. So in 11.0, we saw the FX flyout, which is your favorites menu where you will find the statistical tools and also your favorite data functions listed. In 11.1, we updated the TIBCO enterprise runtime for R to version 6. And just recently, in 11.3, we added the ability to add data functions in our web client Business Author. So when you pick something from the FX flyout released in 11.0, when you pick something from that list in 11.3, you can also use it in your analysis file by mapping inputs and outputs directly from the flyout using web-based, easy-to-use dialogues. So great improvement there, and it really unlocks potentially very complex and powerful data functions to analysts. All right, 11.4. First out is support for Amazon SageMaker. I saw Adam Faskowicz from our data science team on this call, so big thanks to Adam for working hard and closely with the SageMaker team at Amazon to provide us with this new capability, which allows Spotfire to seamlessly integrate with SageMaker Autopilot. And what is SageMaker and what is Autopilot? Well, SageMaker is a complete portfolio of machine learning tools, and Autopilot is a really cool feature that allows you to automatically build, train, and tune machine learning models based on your data. And that fits so great with Spotfire because, of course, we work with any data our customers and partners provide. So we never really know what data we will be using in a certain use case. But that doesn't matter because Sagemaker Autopilot and this integration works and adapts to your data. You can also download it directly from our Exchange, which is here. So you can go here, download it. It's a data function. You need to install a few Python packages, which is really easy with our Python tools, which are built in. And you can use it right away because we have also provided a data set for you to get started. And not only that, it's also very easy to enter your AWS credentials, your keys, secret key, region role, S3 buckets, and so on. And you can also provide some input variables to your job, but of course, in many cases, Autopilot should decide the problem type, for example. And the included data set is based on wine, and we're trying to predict the quality of wine. So we can see the prediction here. One important part of using and these powerful auto ML tools is not only to score your data and sort of gain insights from that, it's also trust the scoring. What happened? Why did the result look like this? And that's why we have the model explainability. And that's also built into Sagemaker Autopilot. There is a specific module for explaining the model. And you can see the SHAP values. You can see that alcohol has the strongest impact on wine quality, for example. So that's included in the template. We also have tools for, of course, running the Autopilot model. And we can also create model endpoints, because remember, Autopilot automatically selects the model that is most suitable for your data set. So it has selected a model for this wine data set. And if we agree with what Autopilot recommends, we can create a model endpoint with that model. So we don't need to discover the model each and every time we update our data. We can go towards that endpoint that is persisted. And we can also delete the Autopilot model because there is a cost involved with having these models deployed on AWS. And all this is supported and part of the template. So if you're interested in learning more about Sagemaker Autopilot in combination with Spotfire, just download this template and give it a try. It comes with actually 5 data functions, one main data function, the run Sagemaker Autopilot one, and also some supporting data functions like creating model endpoint, deleting model, invoking model, and trigger marking. All right, continuing on the same topic, we have proxy support for Python tools. Remember those packages we needed for Sagemaker? You typically download those using the Python tools menu, and we have done some updates behind the scene to make it easier for this tool to find its way to pipey.org and these packages through internet proxies. This was based on early feedback from some of our customers that this tool really couldn't find its way out to the internet, but that should hopefully be fixed with 11.4 LTS. We also support alternative Python package repositories. We have customers, they don't really feel comfortable with allowing end users to access the 200,000 Python packages and use them as is. They really want to be in control and do some quality assurance on packages that are used in the organization, and they keep their own Python package repo. And you can now configure Python tools to go towards that repo instead of pipey.org. We have also updated the interpreter version, so 3.8.10 is now shipped with Spotfire, and we've also updated the Spotfire Python package on Pipey. There's also a page that continues to grow, and that is the data function library page. Our data science team and many others are very busy creating really awesome data functions, and they're posting everything here. So this is where you can find, for example, the k-means clustering function and many other really useful data functions. So please check that out. That's data science. Let's move on to data wrangling. And of course, a review of what was released in 11.0 to 11.3. So 11.0 had a small but valuable feature. You can unhide hidden columns. So if you have deleted a column using the data panel, you can now bring it back. Another feature, which I personally saw useful when working with students is that it's very easy to show and hide data tables by using the data canvas and this checkbox. So in many cases, you're wrangling data using intermediate tables. And if you're creating a template for someone else to use, it's always good to just hide those tables so that no one by mistake starts visualizing intermediate data wrangling tables. So useful feature has been possible for many, many years, of course, in data table properties, but now it's easier to see the setting. And if you're using a lot of add rows and you're adding columns or removing columns over time in your add rows, you can use the auto match feature, so you don't need to go in and match columns with every column that is added over time. You can just use the auto match feature. All right, but now one of the largest and greatest features in 11.4 LTS, and that is actually the ability to open an analysis file 70% faster than compared to previous releases. And how is this possible? Well, we had an opportunity because we used to load data in sequence. So we loaded one data source at a time. And when all data sources were loaded, we executed add rows, add columns, data transformations. Everything in sequence could take minutes, sometimes hours to complete. So instead, our data management team did an awesome work reviewing the whole data loading framework and looked at how we could start as many tasks as possible simultaneously, start loading data from as many sources simultaneously, and do calculated columns, data transformations, create hierarchies, add columns, add rows in parallel. So with 11.4, this is actually the default way of loading data. We load data in parallel, we execute all operations in parallel. It's dependent on the number of threads you have access to. And let me actually show you that. You could turn it off if you find any issues with it. You could switch it off. You can control it on in a preference. And you can also control it on DXP level as a setting. But the default is to have it on. As you can see here, we are loading data from two sources. And you may wonder, we're loading data from Snowflake, and Snowflake can deliver data in parallel. It delivers two tables at the same time. They are each 1.5 million rows. And there are absolutely no issues with bandwidth or Snowflake being bogged down or anything. So why aren't we loading the Postgres dataset here? We have already completed SQL Server, but why aren't we loading Postgres? And that's because my VM has two virtual cores, and this is dependent on the number of available cores. So on another machine, we would also see Postgres data being loaded here. And you can see as soon as one core was freed up, the Postgres data loaded in an instant. And what you can see as well is that this dialog is actually brand new. It's updated. You can see a lot of more details. We can see each and every column, add rows, transformation, calculating a column. Everything is in here, and you can copy it to the clipboard, close the dialog, and here's your data. And this analysis file is actually just showing the data from that progress dialog. And if we just look at each individual operation, so here is orders 1 from Snowflake, orders from Snowflake, we can see that they loaded in 46 seconds, 38 seconds, and so on. We can see the operations. If we were just to summarize these, we would get to 97 seconds. And in previous releases, we would actually wait for 97 seconds. But in 11.4, we wait for 51 seconds. So as an individual analyst, I need to wait. I don't need to wait as long to open my analysis. If this is a schedule update job, automation services job, maybe you can fit more items into your nightly updates. And thanks to Andrew, we also have kind of a Gantt chart with normalized time, where we can actually see exactly what's going on when we are loading data. We can really dig into the details. We can tune and optimize each analysis file for performance and data loading. And this is also based on that clipboard data from the progress dialog. So truly awesome, great job by the engineering team And I'm really happy that it's in the long-term support release. And this is the clipboard data. And here's a small but great feature. When you get to the summary view, you see that the first card is expanded by default. And many users actually didn't know that these cards were expandable, even though we have a small arrow here. And now that's very clear. And you can see that you not only saves your click, you can also see that it's easy to know that you can add data in different ways, and that you can also transform data as part of the data source. So small but important improvements. All right, let's move into data access. Once again, an overview. In 11.0, we were Redshift Spectrum ready. So we worked hard with the AWS team to test our Redshift support and also add support for Spectrum, which is support for external tables. So you can connect your S3 data to Redshift and analyze that through Spotfire. We also had a support for Google Cloud, SQL, Cloudera CDP. Cloudera acquired Hortonworks many years ago, and the result was Cloudera Data Platform. And of course, that's something Spotfire supports. New versions of Netezza also supported. And in 11.1, we added our first hyper-converged analytics. We heard Magnus mention that previously in this webinar. And the first integration was really between Spotfire and TIBCO Cloud data streams. So you have a seamless integration to connect to and analyze your streaming data. 11.2, we added GeoJSON file format support, and also support for the first GPU accelerated database, and it's the database from Brightlight. So we have worked really hard with them to support two things. First of all, they have the ability to plot billions of data points on maps. So we have a template also available for download, where you can, through a mod, using Mapbox, visualize billions of data points, basically. So Brightlight has this smart way of figuring out what data points are behind each individual pixel on the map chart and color by that. So you have a heat map, and you can, in real time, basically zoom in and out and make selections on that map and all those billions of data points residing in GPU data tables. So that's one of the really cool features. And the other one is, of course, the query speed. You can query any data, push SQL into Brightlight, and to be honest, the demos I've seen and what we have used, you almost feel like you have data in memory in Spotfire. It's really that fast. And in 11.3, we show all the supported data sources. We used to list connectors. Now we list data sources. So the 70+ data sources supported out of the box are listed in the Connect To menu. Moving on to 11.4, first feature, single tenant authentication support for SharePoint Online lists. We realized that many customers are using the shared integration point from Microsoft, but also some large organizations prefer to have their own private authentication endpoint, and that is now supported. So you can add that in the preferences, and hopefully more organizations can use this valuable and very, very popular connector. We also have support for Denodo, which is a data virtualization platform. We have a very long list of users asking for push-down query support for Denodo. This is now available, and it's a custom connector, but it looks and feels and works like any other connector. You download it from our community, and you can use it in 10.3 LTS and later, so you don't even need to upgrade to 11.4 to use this connector. We are also Amazon Rds Ready in 11.4. Remember, we were Amazon Redshift Ready. We are now also Amazon RDS Ready. So we have reviewed the use of RDS not only as a data source, but also as a Spotfire server database. Many of our customers are using Amazon RDS SQL Server, Oracle, and Postgres as Spotfire database. And that has now been reviewed, and we are certified. We also certified on Cloudera Impala and Cloudera Hive on CDP. And we support Databricks SQL Analytics. And SQL Analytics is basically a query accelerator. So when you're using Databricks, you're using Spark SQL, the Spark SQL connector. It now supports SQL Analytics. So you can push queries into Databricks and receive query results faster. And if you're a TIBCO Cloud Spotfire users, you can enjoy working with larger data sets. Now you can load up to 20 million rows into this multi-tenant platform. So of course it's a shared environment, so we need to review and be careful when we raise these limits. But we have reviewed all the connectors supported. We have tested many of the data sources, and we have been able to raise the limit from 2 million rows to 20 million rows. And last but not least, we are partners with CData, and they support Spotfire Information Services and JDBC. They have drivers for ODBC and .NET as well, but they also have JDBC. And the really good thing with JDBC is that they actually ship their drivers and provide information services data source templates with all the drivers. So you can reach out to CData, for example, if they have a driver available for a specific CRM system that you use, reach out to CData, say that you're using TIBCO Spotfire, and they will help you out with testing, verification, licensing of the JDBC driver, and it's also supported, including the data source template. So they have support for more than 200 data sources using this method. And with that, back to you, Magnus, and Visual Analytics in 11.4.
Yeah. Yeah, just a second. Okay, so so Visual Analytics features. So let's start by looking at previous releases. So in 11.2, this is a highly requested feature that allows you to color the cross-table cells using another column or custom expression than the expression used for calculating the actual values that are displayed. So for example, this makes it possible to color a cell according to if its value is higher or lower than another cell value. Very useful. And also in 11.2, the option to, it's a configuration option, but also an API option to remove the all and none options from the item filter, the list box and radio button filters. And this is very useful to many users. For example, when creating reports and you want the data to always be filtered. And we in 11.2 also we have reintroduced the option to have an initial visualization automatically displayed when loading new data. So you can choose your preferred default visualization, and administrators can also specify defaults for different user groups. And of course, the feature works also with mods. So, and also a small or an important update to the map chart. So the map data is updated so that you, as you can see in the picture here, it's much more detailed information now by default in the map chart. So moving on to 11.4, it's a new feature in the map chart, multi-layer trellising. So we have actually had a trellis for a very long time, but with a limitation that you can only trellis by one feature layer. And this can actually lead to wrong information being displayed and possibly wrong decisions being taken. So until today, the workaround was to use multiple map chart, but now this is what we are solving now with this feature that you can have any number of feature layers also trellised. So if we look at this example from semiconductor yield analysis, we can see the trellis here is stacked yield maps that are showing in each location here. We can see the yield percentage. So the fraction of dies on silicon wafers that pass testing. So the blue ones here are 100% and a bit less than 100, 81 here, and down to zeros in the yellow position here. So this is actually a really effective way to see the pattern of the testing. So if we add another layer here, so this is individual wafers. So there is a problem here, and that is that this is not trellised at this point. So we're showing the same data on all these wafers, which is not correct. And Spotfire actually informs me now that this is a good candidate for adding an additional trellis layer. So I just click on that and I go ahead and also trellis this layer. And now we can see the correct data. So we have these individual wafers on top of the stacked ones, so we can easily spot the patterns. And I can, of course, do this on another layer as well. So I get this notification and click here, and I just add that. So I get this trellis as well. Yeah, so then we have another map chart feature. Yeah, so here we are using so we are showing high precision rectangles, so down to the pixel level. And I'm not sure if this goes through the Zoom meeting, but this actually shows some artifacts here. Those blue lines here should not be there, and also there are some white lines here. So this is because that the map chart is using a geometry simplification map model, and has always done that. So, but this is not perfect in this situation. So what we can do now is that we go to the layer settings and to the appearance tab. And now we can change this to 6, which means that all features with less points than 6 will not have this simplification. So now this has a lot fewer artifacts. And if I perhaps do undo and redo, you might spot the difference, but it's very clear on when you're sitting next to the screen. So a great addition for the map chart. Yeah. So this was the improved rasterization, and another improvement in level 4 is a user experience improvement. When you're saving a analysis file to the library, you now get the same UI as when you are browsing and searching the library. So these are now unified, and you also get some new options here. So you can copy links to library items to share them with other users. So you can access, you can right-click a library item to get these options. Yeah. So a few additions in the developer and OEM area. Since we launched, okay, so first we had in 11.0 we added capabilities to our co-branding package. So now it's possible to customize the welcome page and the login page. You can add your own images and links to that. And then we have done a lot of things related to mods, so and especially mods developer experience. So we added this API overview page to the mods documentation that gives you a great overview of the API, and you can easily kind of go between that and the regular reference documentation in order to find all properties and functions related to the API. And we also did a release an update of the API with several good features related to data loading and stuff. So this is kind of a continuous thing. We are trying to continuously improve on the API and capabilities around mods. Yeah, then now we have just informed you that we are deprecating the jQuery 1.12 and the jQuery UI libraries. So these will not be shipped with the future version of Spotfire. Nothing is changed in 11.4, so everything works as before in 11.4. So, but if you have custom JavaScript in text areas that are actually using this library, now it's time to kind of start preparing for updating those. So the recommended solutions we have is to either just remove those dependencies and not use these libraries, or you can include your own instances of this library as described in a community article. In some cases, it might be relevant to use mods instead, because they don't, in mods you can use any library, so they are not dependent on this. Or you can, of course, use C# extensions with a web view, perhaps a custom visual or custom panel or a custom tool. Yeah, and then administration. I see that the time is kind of going quickly here, so I just try to keep things a bit shorter. So in 11.0 to 11.3, we have continued our work to do easier integration with standard interfaces. So, for example, OpenID, we have added single logout, and we now support SUSE Linux and Citrix on Windows Server, and also adopt OpenJDK as an alternative to the Oracle distribution. And in 11.4, we have added for the cloud enterprise customers, we have added support for Python, so you can now use Python data functions if you're using cloud enterprise. Yeah, and then we have made things much easier if you want to move to another database. So if you have Oracle or you want to move to Postgres, now you have a command that takes care of everything for you. Type conversions and everything, so it's just running this command. And you can move from any supported database to any other supported database. And lastly, there is a way to configure the maximum number of concurrent sessions per user. So this is mainly two use cases. One is for security. So security management, you want to restrict access to Spotfire this way. So this is aligned with a number of kind of frameworks and standards. And also for license management, some customers may want to stop their end users to evade license purchases by sharing user account from different simultaneous locations. So this has been a requested feature that is now available in 11.4. Yeah, so here is the complete list of 11.4 features. And as you see, the ones in blue are from the ID portal, so that we have implemented now. And if we take a look back at what's happened since 10.3, which I know that many of you might be upgrading from, we see that there is a lot of new features. So this is only up till 11.3. We had 11 releases, 2 LTS releases. Now is the third one, over 130 features, and over 50% of the top IDs from the ID portal is now implemented. Yeah, so that was all we had to present today.